Hello and good day. Welcome to our video channel, God's Promises. And today's video will be a fast, concise overview, Book of Job, chapter 34. Let's get started now. The Book of Job is a story that explores the age-old question of why bad things happen to good people. It is a story of faith, loss, suffering, and ultimately, redemption. Chapter 34 of the Book of Job is a continuation of the dialogues between Job and his friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, who came to comfort him in his affliction. In this chapter, a new character named Elihu speaks up for the first time. Elihu, a younger man, had been listening to the conversation between Job and his friends and had become increasingly frustrated with the lack of understanding and empathy shown by both parties. In his opening statement, Elihu declares that he is speaking on behalf of God and that his words are true and sincere. Elihu's speech in chapter 34 can be divided into two parts. In the first part, Elihu rebukes Job for claiming to be righteous and blameless in the eyes of God. He accuses Job of speaking foolishly and arrogantly, and of believing that he is above reproach. Elihu asserts that God is just and that he will not pervert justice, but he also argues that God's justice is not limited by human understanding. In the second part of his speech, Elihu offers a more nuanced view of God's justice. He argues that God's justice is both fair and merciful, and that God punishes sinners for their own good. Elihu maintains that God's purpose in affliction is to bring about repentance and humility in the sinner, and that once the sinner has been brought low, God will restore him to a state of grace. Elihu's speech in chapter 34 raises some important questions about the nature of God's justice and the role of suffering in the human experience. One of the key themes of the Book of Job is the idea that suffering can have a transformative effect on the individual, leading to greater wisdom, humility, and spiritual growth. Elihu's words suggest that suffering can be a means of divine discipline, a way for God to correct the sinner's path and to bring him back into a right relationship with God. Elihu's speech also challenges the conventional wisdom of Job's friends, who had been insisting that Job's suffering was a direct result of his sinfulness. Elihu's more nuanced view of God's justice suggests that suffering is not always a punishment for sin, but can also be a means of grace and redemption. The story of Job continues to resonate with readers today because it touches on some of the most fundamental questions of human existence. Why do bad things happen to good people? Is suffering always a punishment for sin, or can it have a redemptive purpose? Is God just, and if so, how do we understand his justice in light of the world's suffering? Elihu's speech in chapter 34 offers some answers to these questions, but it also raises new questions and challenges our understanding of God's ways. Ultimately, the story of Job reminds us that we are finite creatures, and that our understanding of God's ways is limited. We may not always understand why we suffer, but we can trust that God is just and merciful, and that he has a purpose for our lives that is greater than our own understanding. Thank you for visiting us today. Please share with us your favorite Bible chapter below in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help our channel grow. Looking forward to see you back here for our next video. Always take good care.